much I'm going to be talking about showing up in the area of personal branding today. Showing up in what? The area of personal branding. And just before I begin, if I were to ask you a very interesting question about what personal branding is, I'm sure it will definitely elicit different reactions from the crowd. I mean, different people will have different things to say. You know, growing up, we used to think that branding was what was printed by people. By printed, I mean personal branding, or rather, branding itself was usually stuffs like flyers, maybe sometimes logos, sometimes all the things they call branded materials were more or less like, how do I put it? Emblems, right? Or sometimes maybe physical things that portray or tell the story of a brand one way or another. And when we talk about personal branding, in my opinion, it's a little bit much more intricate and slightly different than that. So branding tells deeper stories than just flyers, or what do I put? Or do I say banners or logos or even the font sizes of things? Now, by way of ensuring that you get what I just said, I want to ask you a very interesting question. If I told you that I saw someone with a red tie and a black suit with red socks, and the person is a Pan-African entrepreneur, who comes to mind? We're getting there. If I told you I saw a woman tying gele and look at that. Now it gets a bit more interesting. Imagine I told you I saw someone who is an Afrobeat artist, and I saw him wearing white singlets, jean. Someone said it already. Whiskey. We're getting there. If I told you that, for example, I saw someone and I couldn't really tell who he was, but I just saw him acting in a very interesting manner, acting a bit like a prisoner, and was quite uneasy, jumping from place to place in a bit of a boisterous manner. Who comes to mind? Portable Omolalo, me. Now, there's a reason I started that way. It's because if you want to know what branding is, branding goes beyond what a logo is. Branding goes beyond what a font size is. Branding goes beyond all the things that we many times package people to be visibly. I put it this way. Branding in a simple sense is reputation. Are you getting what I'm saying? Branding is what? Reputation. Branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Because all the people I just mentioned here are literally not in this room. But if you noticed, I didn't mention their names, neither did I really mention any of their songs or mention any of the famous speeches they ever gave at any given point in time. All I did was simply mention something that I could associate with them. And that already struck a chord in your minds as to who I might be referring to. Does this make any sense whatsoever? And what if I told you that every single person here has got a personal brand? Every single person here has got opinions about other people. But as much as you have opinions about other people, others have opinions about you. And a whole lot of time, we are so quick to telling people what we think about others, forgetting that other people also have opinions about us. We're in a generation where people lack self-awareness. Everybody has something to say about other people, forgetting that people also have something to say about them. And so here's the point. You know, there's something we try to say in self-leadership. It's a technique, or rather, do I call it a theory that tries to help explain some good aspect of public opinion. It's something called the Johari window. The Johari window talks about 4 different parts of yourself. It says there's the open self. The open self is what you know about yourself that others know. And then there's something called the hidden self. things about you that you know, but others do not know. Maybe some secrets, some deep stuff about you that no other person kind of knows about, which is fair. And then again, the third part of the Johari window is the blind self. The blind self are parts of yourself that you do not know, but others know. Have you ever had a friend that bars? In case you don't know what bar is, you guys are a bit twittish. To bar means to smell like locust beans, aka Iru. To bar means to stink in such a way that when the person is coming, almost everybody knows the person has arrived. Now, how many of you know that many times friends who probably have body odor or mouth odor are not really aware of the odors that they elicit? So they talk, bro, now them they like they talk fast. Bro! And you're like, yo! Stuff like that. And that thing really gets me. And sometimes it makes me overly self-aware. You know, one of my fun facts about my life is very weird. I use body spray like 4 times a day. My wife thinks I have an issue. And trust me, I don't smell like that. Trust me, trust me, trust me. But I'm overly too self-aware that I feel like every single time, if I take my bath at 1 a.m., you just hear I must never be caught on fresh. Now, honestly speaking, right, this stems from the fact that I have learned to try to rise up to a standard that I demand from others. Are you getting what I'm saying? A whole lot of us are so good and quick to talk about what other people are, but caring so little about how others find us and what their opinions about us are. Look, I know we tell you as pastors, he has casted me that I'm a pastor. So I know we tell you as pastors every time, you know, you are who the Lord says you are. Forget about what others think. Forget about this, forget about that. That is true in a context, in terms of finding your self-worth. Are you getting my point? However, you will never amount to anything in a society full of people if you don't care about what the people there think about you. It might not matter who doesn't like you, but it matters who likes you. It matters. Because almost everything you will ever amount to or become will be tied to who you know or who knows you. So it matters. And so, back to the concept of your blind self. It talks about aspects about you that you don't know, but others know about you. And so here's my point. As long as you're in the midst of people, public opinions matter. As long as you're in the midst of people, it counts and matters what people think about you. Enough of trying to excuse away your bad behavior because you feel, I don't care. I can be bad all by myself and it doesn't matter what they think. Well, 1 decade later, you realize that all the opportunities you might have lost on the grounds of your nonchalant behavior would have cost you a whole lot more than you could have thought about. And so it matters. And so every single person you see has a personal brand. You know, in some of my private coaching sessions, you know, I coach HNIs and entrepreneurs, many who aren't even in the country. And we get into very intense conversations. In fact, our first and second sessions are always like therapy. Statistically, 70% of them end up crying because I tell them bitter truths that they were yet to uncover in their lives. So here's my point. I'm still going to talk to you about personal branding, but there's a foundation I must lay. And here's the foundation. Many of us are so particular about the subject of personal branding, but we have failed to pay attention to the person that is about to be branded. The person that is about to be what? To be branded. Listen, personal branding simply means amplifying a person and improving and taking his personal image to a wider audience. But the question is, what is the image we are taking to a wider audience? And this brings to fore the subject of the limelight. Many of us forget that the limelight is simply an amplifier. It only amplifies everything that you give it, which means that the limelight does not change you. It instead amplifies what and who you are. And so if you give the limelight rubbish, it will amplify rubbish. If you give the limelight something great, it will paint it and shine it to the entire world and let people know you for how good and great you are. However, here's where it gets very interesting. The limelight doesn't forgive. Because listen and listen well. The limelight is designed in such a way that when it commends for all to see. But when it condemns even much more intensely than you probably could have imagined. And so I always tell people, look, I can teach you personal branding for the next 5 hours and I won't look at a single piece of note. But here's not the gist here. Today, because of the kind of audience I'm speaking to, and you guys are church family, and so I need to tell you this very well. Before I talk about all the whole branding jargon, I need to start by saying, is the person intact before we seek to amplify him? Some of you have no business trying to brand yet because you are still yet to lead yourself and regulate yourself to a given extent. Because if you brand prematurely, your fingers will get burnt. And many times you must understand that if you seek to brand prematurely and you get into the public gaze and the attention of everyone seems to be fixed on you, something interesting will happen. It is that you will feel the punishing effect of the limelight. The moment the light comes on you, it shows everything that was private and makes it become public, including all your issues, all the character flaws you have failed to manage, the ones mommy and daddy corrected you about, but you felt they did not like you. Yes. The ones that made you lose 4 friends in 1 year, but you are not the one at fault. You say it's all your friends that were wrong. They lost a gem. The one that made 4 people break up with you. If you enter the first room and it is smelling, something could have been wrong. If you enter the second room and it's smelling, third room, you are the one that is smelling now. Everybody can be wrong about you. And so listen and listen well. The foundation of building a successful personal brand that will stand the test of time is that you must have a formidable character and you must ensure that you have led yourself before you seek to lead others. The reason I'm saying this is I teach people holistically. I don't just give you punchlines and you go. If I want this place to erupt in the next 1 minute, I will tell you some words. You start shouting, whoa, 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 deep. But what happens when I take you to that crescendo and then you leave here thinking, oh, I can be bad all by myself. And then 1 or 2 years down the line, your brand has nosedived and there's almost no way to resurrect it. Let me tell you something. It is harder to rebuild a brand than it is to build one from the start. I tell you this from the bottom of my heart. And so if all I'm coming here to do is to tell you, oh, brand, move fast, do everything you need to do as fast as possible. Bam, 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 bam. As cute as that sounds, in the next 3 to 4, 5 years, because you are branded prematurely and fail to solve specific issues before you got to the limelight, it would obviously do you no good when you get there. And so the first thing we need to get out of the way is we need to pay attention to the person that needs branding first. Because you can't give what you don't have. You can't what? You can't give what you don't have. And so ask yourself, why am I so much in a hurry to get other people to fix their gaze on me? How am I so much in a hurry to tell people all the stories? And now, this is not to say you are not ready, but this is to say that you must pay so much attention to yourself first before you seek to have others fix their gaze on you. You know, in my short life, I've seen people rise to the pinnacle of their careers or rise to the peak of their social status, and everything comes crumbling within the space of a short period. And then I realize that it is actually harder to climb the stairs, but easier to come down. You know, it was Bishop David Oyedepo who said that whatever brings a man down was in his baggage on his way up. Whatever brings a man down was in his what? Was in his package on his way up. And so this means that if you are really going to take anything home today, it will be that building a brand is easy. Sustaining it and ensuring that you don't drop the ball is where the real work is. And so let's sort all of these out as fast as we possibly can. Let's sort it out as fast as we possibly can. So what aspects of myself do I need to pay attention to? What parts of my life need work? Have I sorted out the issues of laziness that are currently plaguing me? Or do I need to wait till I make it before I get there? And so that's just a very interesting thing. What are the minute issues that need sorting out before we now focus on the brand? But having said that, personal branding is one of the things that you need to truly fulfill and maximize your potential, particularly in career and business in this day and age. But I had to get that out of the way as fast as possible. So remember, the person is more important than the brand. The person is the foundation for a successful brand. And so this means that there are some personal habits in your life you might have to do away with as fast as possible. And new ones you have to embrace. Things like lifelong learning. Things like grit and indefatigableness. Things like collaboration. All of these things are very important at the base level before you now think of doing anything else. Are we clear about that? All right. Now, let's say that the large people in this population already have that sorted out and have already built, formidability as human beings, confidence as individuals, and have great characters and now want to project themselves. Where do I go from here? Which is pretty much my assignment. You see, Daniel Presley said something that I think is so brilliant. He said, and I quote, 60% of people would rather buy from personal brands than established businesses. Take that again. How many percent? 60% of people. For context, Steve Bartlett, the owner of the Diary of a CEO podcast, has more followers. I repeat, more followers than the BBC. Or rather, times 2 more followers than Channel 4. And I think about half the followers of the BBC. If you add all the following of all the major cosmetic brands, the major luxury cosmetic brands in the world put together, it's not up to half of the following of Kylie Jenner or Kylie Kardashian or whatever her name is. Now, for context, add the entire following of all Nigeria's major news and television institutions. Put them together. It's not up to the following of someone like Funke Akindele. Add the following of even our own personal company that she created and built to the top, Scene One Productions. Add Biowa Films and all those ones in the Didi Lane that they tell you to go and watch then. Umuaya Road on Onitsha. This one, that. Put everything together. It pales in comparison to what she commands as a personal brand. Now, here's where I'm headed. It simply is that people will Google you before they Google your business. You know why? It is because since the turn of the century, there has actually been a major paradigm shift from institutions being the main beacons of credibility to human beings. You see, media has been decentralized, and we need to pay attention to how important and how vital a time in history that we are in. You know, back in the day, if you needed to grow in credibility around the world, you know what you're going to do? You're going to look for established news institutions. In fact, back in the day, I heard Dr. Sam Adeyemi say this, and I think it's so profound. He says, everyone who controlled the political arena controlled the media. In fact, in most cases, all of them owned media houses. from the Azikues to the MKO Abiolas, they own stuff. And even your current presidents. Your own media houses. You know why? Because if you can control narratives, you can shape what? The future. And that's exactly what they thought, and that's exactly how they've always believed. But listen, something interesting happened the moment a young man in the name Mark Zuckerberg decided to create a social media platform that more or less eliminates centralization and now democratizes information from person to person in such a profound way. And so Facebook came, Twitter came, and many more institutions came. And beyond that, what that simply did was that it moved power from institutions to people. It moved power from bodies to individuals. It did. And this means, and it calls for very sober reflection, because if you're not making the most of it, then something is wrong. And remember, if personal branding simply is what people say about you when you are not in the room, the goal here should be, how can I get more people to say positive things about me when I'm not in the room? Are you getting what I'm saying? And so this is very important and very crucial. Very important and very crucial. And so we are at a point in history where it is possible. It is possible. I can, to my personal advantage, utilize social media and even any sort of media to ensure that I get desired results. And so very quickly, I want to share something from the bottom of my heart that, in my opinion, will help you and set you on course in the fastest possible way.
Know that many times when you make people feel good, it does not mean you told them the truth. And so I found out that there was some credible balance with what I had to say, and which was great. And as God will have it, and thank God for his providence, he put me at a particular point in history where the vehicle that will help me get to my destination of impacting the world is at the tip of my fingers. You know what that vehicle is? Social media. It's free. It's free. And one thing that this does is that it eliminates whatever excuse you might have whatsoever. Imagine you're trying to get to Maza Maza, and everybody needs to get to Maza Maza before 2 p.m. And you hear that there's a bus outside waiting to convey you to your destination. And then imagine you're scared. And then someone comes and tells you, oh, no, it's free. It's free. Go and jump on it. If you do not jump on the bus, who do you have to blame? Yourself. And so here's the point. If personal branding means amplifying what I have going for me in small bits, then social media is a major vehicle to help me reach more people. And so many times the difference between you and the people that things are working out for, at least seemingly on social media, is that you've allowed your timidity get in the way. And so the first thing first is you've got something to say. You've got something to say. And the second thing is no one can say it like you. Nobody can say it like you. You know, I have this private mentorship group called The Mushroom. And people will sign up every month, you know, we're part of it, and it's always very cool stuff. And so very recently, I decided to teach them about personal branding and content creation. Now, for context, I can teach personal branding for 20 hours and will still not be done. So I'm trying to shorten as fast as possible what I can. In the masterclass, I'll go deeper into showing up in your digital space, right? But here's the point. And then in the midst of it, I was talking to them and I said something. I said, there are different ways to identify and carve out a niche for yourself. Because listen, first thing I said was you have something to say. Second thing I said is no one will say it like you. And one of the main problems you have in your mind and in your head could be, what I want to say, I've already seen somebody say it. If that's you, raise your hands. Have you ever had an idea to do something, but because you dragged your feet, someone else already did, the person already popular for it. And then I hear business owners tell me this in business consultations. The market is so saturated, cute stuff. There's no such thing as a saturated market. What you have is a market where you have not employed strategies that make you stand out. And listen well. I don't care how many people are currently in the influencing space. Maybe fashion, film, lifestyle, whatever the case might be. There's nobody that will say something the exact way you would have said it. Even if we're all reading from the same line, we all will not say it or tell that story the same way. And here's where your uniqueness comes into play. You need to learn to tap into different aspects of your life that you maybe never paid attention to. And here's how to do it. You see, many of you don't know that some of the reasons God put you through those parts of your life or brought you through different experiences in your life is so you can tell a story about it later. There are some of you here, no matter how much I, Olushola, talk about people in pain and suffering, you can tell it more. Because you can tell it with your life. You felt it. And even if I say I once went to bed without food, you know what it feels to have gone to bed without food at least for a whole week. What happened to those experiences? Oh, or you think people only care about your success stories? Guess what? I can teach you how to turn your failures, caress them, package them, and tell them in such a way that is what leads you on the success journey. In fact, I dare say, many of you think that people are only attracted to those who have success stories to tell. But today I tell you that's not the case. In fact, I dare say that when you make your failure stories compelling, people are attracted to it. You know why? People are more attracted to progress stories than even stories of accomplishment. Take us through your journey. You're going through stuff. Tell it. Tell it. You learn stuff every day. Some days it's when you're on the sun for so long. Sun don't beat you just because you were waiting for a bus to take you to Lasso, and then you got on the bus and things were so terrible. But then in the midst of that journey, you found some time, plugged your ears, and found some sanity. Why not pick up a phone and talk about inner peace? This is important. There are angles and aspects of your life that you feel are so dark that no one wants to hear. But it's actually your weapon to reaching the world. I tell people this every time. I say sometimes you could even be the things people yapped you about when you were small. You know, now I'm a little bit more ambiverted. But when I was small, I was so talkative. So much. It was so bad that my mom would look at me and say, Shola, if you can sit down here for 1 minute and not talk, I'll give you 100 naira. I'm like, really? Yay! And then I keep quiet. At 52 seconds, just at the edge of glory, you hear me talk. And that's how I lose it. Sometimes they'll say you talk too much. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how many thousands of dollars I get paid every month to talk too much? That's the beauty of creating and telling a story. That the story doesn't have to come from the most beautiful parts of your life or the things that people might have celebrated about you. The stories could come from periods and moments of pain. All you have to do is tap into that part of the inner recesses in your heart and in your mind, get the story, polish it in a refined form, and let it bless other people. Let it speak to other people. This is so important. Very, very vital. So number one, you've got something to say. Number two, nobody can say it like you. No one can say it like you. No one. And then social media is that vehicle. Or the media generally, decentralized media is a vehicle that to get you where you want to get to. Very important. Now the reason I'm hammering this home is because it will not matter what you know. It will matter who knows that you know what you know. People don't get paid for what they know. People get paid for what they know that they have converted to value. Some of you are sleeping on billion-dollar ideas or billion-dollar consultations in your mind. Some of you are so gifted. You are deeper than the people who are making billions off an idea. You know the difference between you and them? They show up and they do so consistently. But you are currently still in the obscurity for almost no reason other than you keep second-guessing yourself. Listen, I'm a big fan of starting the right way. But let me tell you the truth. Many times just start. Start. Kick off. Do something little. I'm not saying expose yourself too early. I'm saying start by testing your ideas in your immediate environment. You know, I was speaking at a conference recently, and the conference was titled Global Relevance. And I told them, I said, listen, there's no global relevance without local excellence. So start from somewhere. You want to speak and motivate the entire world. Have you motivated your younger brother at home? You want to consult for leading organizations. The woman selling pepper in your street, have you taught her innovation? Start. Test the idea. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build. Test it. At the initial stages, it might look like, oh, how am I going to really do it? They will insult me. Listen, embarrassment is usually the cost of entry. You will initially be embarrassed. If I show you my videos from 2017, you will weep. You will shout. Step out regardless. Get your failures out of the way as fast as possible. Because if you don't fail now, you will fail later. And there's no greater school for self-development than the school of failure. Get it out of the way. Fail fast. Fail fast. Get it out of the way. The faster I do it, the faster I will be corrected. In fact, the faster I get it out, the faster I will know what works and what doesn't work. So failure is a schoolmaster that leads me to success. Failure is a schoolmaster that propels me on the path of attainment. That's what it is. The difference between many of us and the people who are making strides all around the world is not knowledge. No, it's not potential. It is how much potential they have made kinetic. Just move. The world doesn't pay you for standing still. Move. Very important. And see, I need to say this in the best possible way. It is so important that you know this because I found out that procrastination in many cases is simply people trying to romanticize ideas. So, we will do feasibility study. When we are done, we will do SWOT. We will know how to enter, where from, to from. I get that. And it's good, don't get me wrong. Planning is very good. Don't start out something before you plan. But here's my point. As you plan, test. When you test, you will even see things that will make you go back to your drawing board while still testing. This is important. Very, very, very important. So do not let it. The world doesn't reward you for your great ideas. It rewards you for execution. That's why I'm planning to, is one of the things I detest the most in my life. I don't ask for too much. But if my daughter shows up and tells me she's about to get married to a young man, I will sit him down and I'll just ask him some very honest questions. What do you do? And what are you planning to do? If what he is planning to do is way more than what he's currently doing, I will walk him out of my house. Because it's a terrible pattern when every single thing that is great about you is still in the future. There must at least be footprint in the present. That's the point. Okay, he is planning to establish fintech. Are you doing fin? At least fin. Who won't think about tech? Just do something. Just do something. So very important. Start from where you are. Start from where? From where you are. Start from where you are. And the next thing I think I want to tell you is have a plan. In the masterclass, I'll talk a little bit more about more things. But have a plan. Have a plan. Have a plan. And so when we talk personal branding, one of the things you must avoid is to build a brand that is too everywhere, yet nowhere. Did you hear what I said? You can be everywhere, but nowhere. Can I say something? This is not really the class. I'm trying to see what to remove and what to keep. That's why if you notice, I was just talking without looking at anything because I don't want to get too much into my notes. Because those ones will take like hours before I exhaust. But let me tell you something. You are in a world that favors specialists more than generalists. How many of you agree? Quick one. How many of you are likelier to buy from a brand that... How many of you are likelier to buy from a brand that sells... You won't buy shoes. How many of you are likelier to buy from a brand that sells just shoes or from a brand that sells shoes, bikini, underwear, suit, kaftan, ready to wear? Why? Anybody? Huh? I can't hear you. That's their what? It hurts. It really does hurt. Because sometimes the brand that actually makes many more of these things could even have better shoes. But typically, as human beings, we have an idea. And this is our idea. You know, Alex Omozi said this. And he said his dad told him that a focused fool is better than a distracted genius. And that tells me something. Is that typically human beings appreciate specialty because one thing that bets specialization is focus. The fact that your eyes are fixed on something. The fact that you are so obsessed. That's the word. There's almost no one who has ever achieved monumental success without a given level of obsession. You know, one of the things I recommend, go and watch Mr. Beast's interview on Diary of a CEO. Anybody here watch the full interview? Yeah. Guy's ridiculous. Sorry, he's mad. Very mad. He said, and I quote, all his life, he had only obsessed about one thing. And that one thing was YouTube. That one is almost demonic obsession. Because every single thing, you guys know who Mr. Beast is, right? Okay, thank God. Because people are looking at me a little bit funny. Mr. Beast is the most followed YouTuber in the world. And the guy who makes the most incredible bucks from social media. So that's who he is. And then he was talking about how almost all his life he had always built and just felt, look, so, YouTube. But here's the point. I'm not trying to make you develop an obscene obsession like Mr. Biggs. But here's it. For anything you are trying to build, have a plan. Here's what I'm trying to say. The world favors many times specialists more than generalists, which means that when people have a problem they want to solve, they are likelier to go to specialists. When you have an issue with your ear, your nose, or your throat, who do you go to? ENT. That's what you do. When people have cancer, they go to oncologists to help them through it. You have issues with your child, you very likely see a pediatrician, yes or yes. Sometimes someone in general medicine could even have better ideas, but you tend to gravitate towards that person a bit more. So here's the point. There's something called the power of niching. The power of what? Niching. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that you don't show the other beautiful parts or aspects of your life. What I'm saying is that put something at the forefront. If I asked you here, what do you want to be known for? You must have an unequivocal response. It must be, I want to be known for this, known for that, or known for this. You can't be known for everything and yet have people look and seek to you for consultations. No. If I mention Tao, what do you know her for? If I mention Donald J. Trump, what do you know him for? Entrepreneurship and what? Politics. If I mention Funke Akindele, what do you know her for? Let me share a hack that will always work. One of the main problems many of us have is that because we are divergent and multi-potentialite, just like myself, we tend to grapple and struggle with, what do I pick? Is it just me? Good. What do I pick? Where do I start from? I teach that later. Where do I start from? Let me tell you something. I always tell you many times, start with the lowest hanging fruit. Here's the point. If you try to build everything at once, problem good day. Because if you try to build everything at once, you will almost build nothing. And sometimes you must also be able to discern seasons in your potentials with God. Not every dream God has placed in your heart is for immediate expression. Not every dream is for immediate expression. It's not everything you are good at that you work on at the same time. Sometimes it is the acting that will get you to the limelight that will now enable you to build enough credibility to now let people know that you sing. First, the bad guy was a lawyer who always loved to sing. How did you know him first? Elope. Nas Boy has been singing since time immemorial. Pivoted a bit, did some comedy, blew up. What happened? What do you know him for? For singing. Here's the point, and this is exactly where I'm headed. It is that at the initial stages, you have to niche to a given extent, particularly in personal branding. Now, niching is not saying you might be known for just maybe one thing, but I'm simply saying build around a particular idea. You must have an introduction. It was Yasikan who said if you don't have an introduction, you must be ready for a rejection. So when they ask you, what do you do? You must be able to say, once, this is what I do. Or I do this to help people achieve this. Are you getting what I'm saying? It will not be that you start listing all your competencies in your life. Sometimes let people come closer to you and find out the other giftings that you have. But one thing must pull them close first. It's a very important ingredient in personal branding. Because sometimes if your reputation is divided, it will never amount to something major. Branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so I don't want people saying too many things because I want people to have some given level of consensus about who they think I am. Am I making any sense here? Very, very, very important. Now, when you have settled on what you want people to know about you, develop a structured plan on how you want to communicate that core competence. What's the plan? There must be a plan. I have 10 more minutes. Hey, okay, I'll be done. There must be a plan. One of the biggest vehicles like I mentioned is social media. And listen, I wish I had case studies to give you. Maybe I'll call someone here. You know what? Let's do that. Any volunteer? First person to get here. That's interesting. I would have always been the first volunteer anyway. No, she stood up first. Sorry, sir. She did. Thank you. But you two come. 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 How you doing, ma? What's your name? What do you do? You're a real estate consultant. Beautiful. Stay here. What do you do, sir? You're what? Data analyst. Stay here. All right. Good. Data analyst, real estate consultant, they're both trying to build their brands, right? What can I do or tell them as a brand specialist to help them grow their personal brand? So here's the thing. Please, how long have you been doing what you do? You do what? You started in January. How many homes have you closed so far? About 5 homes. Beautiful. You? You started in 2024 January? Then? You build personal projects? You've gone on the streets to help businesses volunteer. Beautiful. Now, guys, guess what? You know, one of the biggest challenges we will face is being able to communicate your story in a compelling fashion. She is into real estate. The average person here knows at least 100 people into real estate, yes or yes? Question is, what will stand her out? And then what will stand him out? Now, what will stand you out majorly is tapping into your personal story and your journeys to be able to help you, propel your image a bit better. So if I met Peace, and then she told me she's a real estate consultant, there's nothing she's going to tell me that might really make me stick because I know a million others. Guess what, guys? I went to speak at a conference sometime months ago, and I met a young man who blocked me at the toilet and said, "Hi, that was powerful, sir. Thank you." I said, "Oh, great. How you doing? What do you do?" He says, "I sell yam for a living." I said, I'm interested. Does it sound stupid or not? You sell yam for a living. This is because he chose something that wasn't the norm to ensure that he stands out. He brought up a very interesting idea to make him look separate and different from every other person who would say, oh, I sell nibbles, or I sell small chops, or I sell whatever. And I was interested, and I made sure to listen to him. So here's my point. What will make you different from the average real estate person who is selling homes? Or permit me to say, many of them try to be different in different ways. Because at some point we all got tired of, hello everyone, right behind me is a massive place in Aja, 4-bedroom flat. Now they brought a lot of Lagos. You will love it. You see this swimming pool here? Small one here. You will love it. After those strategies got a bit tiring, they went to look for real estate consultants with massive IKB. If you are less than 18, close your ears. Don't ask me what IKB is. It's what is behind. And guess what they do? It's a strategy. The ladies walk away from the camera and show you the house. Nasty, right? That's what they believe is their UVP, unique value proposition. There must be something about you, your person, your brand that stands you out. As silly as that is, embrace the principle, don't copy it. Are you getting what I'm saying? Find what is unique. So for you, Peace, it could be a story. I can help you, for example, carve a very interesting story now. You know what I would do? And I just told Peace, if she wants to tell her story to make her stand out, what can she do? I'm giving an example. Let's say you grew up in Ajegunle. You could look at the fact that maybe you grew up in Ajegunle, and when you were growing up, your family moved from one rented apartment to another. So here's what I would have said. Hi everyone, my name is Peace. You see, I grew up in the lower echelon of society. I'm the fourth of 6 children born to my dad and mom. Oh boy, we struggled. We went through different phases of our lives and different challenges. But one challenge was consistent. It was a housing problem. Almost every house we ever lived, we always had our things thrown out. And that was the case up until I clocked the age of 15 and left the house to stay with an aunt, only to meet the same problem again. And as I grew up, I missed many of the things I was passionate about. I had an inclination to solve a particular problem. That problem is a housing problem. Next thing I'll do, I'll bring statistics. 155 million Nigerians live in houses that do not belong to them. And because about 90% of Nigerians live below the poverty line, I'm just giving you statistics, could be vague, whatever it is, right? Now live below the poverty line, there clearly is an inability to meet up to the expectations of the landlords that house them. And so at Peace and Co, our major obsession has been on how to create affordable housing units for families in the lower part of the socioeconomic, strata. Are you getting my point? Now, can you see a difference? Can you see the difference? So, there's something etched in my brand story that makes it compelling. The difference between carpenter and interior design and our packaging. Nobody pays carpenter, interior designer money. Nobody pays tailor, fashion designer money. Every fashion designer that owns, I own a clothing company. It is powered by tailors. They are the ones sewing it. But if they stood alone, they will never command 300,000 naira for a suit. Highest they will command is 40K. You know why? People pay you for perception. They don't directly pay you for the value you give to them. They pay you for perceived value. And so, the goal of personal branding is how can I make myself top of mind? In a world where people are distracted, how can I ensure that all that I have to offer them remains top of mind? So you must find unique ways. Are you so sorry? Time might fail me to share much about you, but I hope this helps. Thank you so much. And so, over the course of the next couple of months, if I were her, my goal would be, since I found a story that is compelling, how can I shorten the story, put it on my profiles, use social media as touch points to reach other people? And then, before you know it, I'll talk about that in the digital class, right? But before you know, you have to now look for how to show up. Are you getting my point? Now, how do I show up to ensure that people, see me? How do I show up to ensure my time and about 2 minutes left? How do I show up to ensure that people see me? And it's very important. So, the final thing I want to say is this. When you show up, it will not matter if you come the first time. It only matters how often you show up. Is there anybody here who knows that in most cases you make a buying decision not the first time you see a product? You make a buying decision the more you keep seeing a product. How many of you saw what Temu did to us when they came around? Quick question. How many of you have Temu'd your personal brands to that point? To make it irresistible. One of the things that improves your potential for irresistible brands is how often they show up. If already established institutions like Domino's always ensure they send you messages almost every week to come and buy pizza, despite the fact that they have physical presence in almost every major local government in every major city in Nigeria, how much more you? What is reminding people? Oh God. What is what? Reminding people about you. What's reminding people about your personal brand? What will make them see you every day and know that they need to patronize, or there's something about you that will make you stand out? Just yesterday night, one of the biggest speakers in the country, if I mention her name, everybody here knows. She sends me a DM and we're just talking. And she was like, obviously she had known me for a long time because her husband follows me. But she was like, there was something I did that made her follow me. Here's the point. Many of the times, people are observing more than you think they are. And some keep dragging their feet for one reason or another. But the power of consistency means that I must position myself in a way where I show up so consistently that they have almost no choice. Someone put it this way. Success is never owned, it is rented, and the rent is paid every day. The rent is paid what? Every day. We're in a world where everybody has cute ideas, but few start. But not everybody that starts does something I call follow through. People don't follow through. And so showing up is all about consistency. How can I remain in the faces of my potential customers? How can I remain in people's faces every time? I end with this. It's because you live in a social media world where the distraction is so heavy that people will move on without you. Anybody here can mention at least one comedian that you knew 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whose skits you've even forgotten about because the person has stopped posting? Let me tell you something. To people's minds, you are not as important as you think you are. You are only important to the degree that you show up. Did you hear what I said? How can you remain top of mind? How can you etch your work in the consciousness of people every single waking day? That should be your goal. And it is my hope that if you embrace some of the things I've taught and embrace consistency as a practice, you will ensure that you're able to leave enough footprints on the way to success. I hope this helps. See you in the masterclass. Thank you.